How long do you typically hold a stock?
Well, there's a quote which I ran into last year, which I wish I had run into 20 years ago, which is, I think, a quote by Thomas Phelps, who wrote 100 to 1 in the stock market. It's a great book he wrote in 1972, I think. And I can't recall the exact quote, but basically he's said to the effect that every sell decision is in fact an investing mistake. Anytime you sell, you're in effect acknowledging that you made an investing mistake. So utopia would be that you made an investment that you could hold for a few decades and that would be compounding at a solid double digit rate over that period. And you didn't have to do anything. You just sit on your ass and the company just kicks ass for you. And such businesses do exist, and it's easy to identify them in hindsight. It's a lot harder to identify them before that's happened, but that's the holy grail. So my holding periods, I went through quite a significant change in my thinking last year. I think for a couple of decades, my thinking was like with Frontline, you buy it kind of half off and then you double your money and you move on and soak, rinse, and repeat. And that is fine. It can certainly be a good way to make a buck, but it is tax inefficient, and you're on a treadmill of activity. And even in the case of Frontline, I missed the big run. I captured my double, but I didn't capture the big run. And my thinking now is much more around compounders. It's around questions like, what is the destination of this business in 10 or 20 years? What does this business look like in 10 or 20 years? And of course, a business like Frontline, you just couldn't get there. The only thing you could do with a business like that, from my point of view, was play this arbitrage game of liquidation value versus the stock price. It'd be very hard to hold it on earnings because it was so volatile. So I think the holy grail is to find these compounders that the rest of the world has not figured out are great compounders yet. And then you just sit on your ass. So that's the game plan.
When I was going through the financial crisis, one of the things that was really exciting was just the sheer number of investment opportunities. So, while your portfolio is crashing and burning, on the other hand, you're seeing all these, mouth-watering investment ideas and such. And I think, like, for example, I found, the whole commodity space just collapsed. And I was finding so many ideas of investing in commodities. And they were really, really simple ideas that I think every single one looked like at least a 5x. And so because I didn't have a lot of time to study them, I made a basket bet with a bunch of them. Not a single one was a loser. Almost every single one of them went up at least 4 or 5 times. I think one investment I made, Tech Cominco, which I sold after a 5x, went up to a 10x. So it was just, one of the things that was very attractive about that time was that there was a lot of investment ideas, and I was selling cheap stocks to buy cheaper stocks. So that's one of the things I did. I used that period to make I tried to widen as much as I could the discount to intrinsic value by doing that. But on the personal side, I think at the bottom of the financial crisis, my net worth, I think, was down to 18 million. There are worse problems in life than having a net worth of 18 million. So I didn't have too many issues with that. Of course, if I looked at, peak to bottom, it was a huge drop. I think peak had been somewhere I think I'd paid tax and all, but somewhere around north of 80 million. So if I looked at it from peak to bottom, it was a significant drop. But my take was that things looked really cheap. I liked what we owned. I think that I didn't have any leverage, and I really didn't see any reason to get. I mean, I'd seen with my dad, right, that you basically keep your senses about you and just keep chopping wood and move ahead. And that's an important thing to do.